Okay. Okay, awesome. So let's say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So good day, everyone. Good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to another Excel session brought to you by your BizEdge. So for today's session, we're having pivot table from beginners to advanced. And our special guest is Daniel Orefuwa. And also I want to use the opportunity to announce our new sponsors, MHS Analytics. So for some of you that don't know who MHS Analytics is, it's a training and consulting company in Canada. So with their main goal is basically towards they're committed to giving their clients the business intelligence edge that they need by using tools they already have, such as Power BI, Excel, and also financial modeling. So about us, your BizEdge. We're a registered Excel consultant, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. We also specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of their business data. We're also the developer of some financial tools which you can find on the Microsoft Office store, such as the Nigerian Finance Market Analysis tool, also the Nigerian Stock Analysis Dashboard, and so many other tools. We're also a training company in Lagos, Nigeria. We have branches in Port Harcourt and also in Abuja. So for our next training will be on the 11th of April, which is for Python for data analysis. On the 14th of April, will be in-depth Excel training, executive dashboard, and business data analysis. On the 17th of April, we'll be having financial modeling and financial planning training. So our special guest, Daniel, who is also an accountant. He's a certified accountant by training and practice. Key interest in area of FPA and Financial Modelling, a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and also a certified financial modeling analyst by CFI. Is a preacher in personal finance, and he also loves to read books about so many topics in financial sector. So with no further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over the session to Daniel. So Daniel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Timidayo, for the warm introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel once again, and I'll be here taking you on how to use pivot table from beginner to advanced. So while I share my screen, I know we've all used pivot table, but of course, pivot table has a lot of functions that you can use even to the advanced level. When I first started using pivot table, I never knew I could work with Excel, work with data that has multiple rows as long as 88,000, 90,000, 100,000 rows. Before, when I get a report, I just have about 1,000 rows, and I put in formulas for me to be able to do one or two things and get insights from that particular data. But with pivot table, you can do these things. It helps you save time. It helps you do some basic calculation, even to the extent of adding additional rows and columns to your data. And it helps you be able to summarize this data in a very reasonable manner. So what is pivot table? Like I said, pivot table is a summarizing data. It helps you summarize your data. It helps you sort it. It helps you be able to do basic calculation ranging from sum, average, and some other basic inbuilt functions in Excel. So basically what pivot table does is that it helps you work with large amount of data, and you can summarize it within with a click of 2 to 3 buttons or shortcuts. Okay, getting started with pivot table. What you need to know is that you can find pivot table in the insert section of Excel. Once you open your Excel, you go to insert and you can see pivot table at the extreme left. That is where you find pivot table. Once you just click that button, it will tell you to input where you want the pivot table to look your data from, or from which cell to which cell. So that's where you can find your pivot table. The next thing is setting up a pivot table. So I will use the sample data with just having 232 rows. to give you an example of how to set up a simple pivot table. But in my usual tradition, whenever I want to set my pivot table, I often try to change this data into a table data. Just because it's not that it will add any special thing to the pivot table, but whenever I had a new data below the end of the previous one, my pivot table picks it up automatically after I refresh it. But if I use the pivot table in this manner without changing this data into a table format, whenever I refresh my pivot table, after I've added a new data under the next row, my pivot table would not catch that data, which often leads to error and what have you. So to insert a table, I will do Control T. Control T will pick my table to the end of the row 232, and I press OK. What I just have to do is, I don't like any styling on my table. I just remove the styling with this section of the table. Once you are on the table, you can see design. You come to this section of the table and you click this particular one to remove all the design. So we want to set up a simple pivot table, and the shortcuts to set up a pivot table, I like to work with shortcuts. So the setup to set up this simple pivot table is Alt NV. Once you have clicked Alt NV, your pivot table would bring out this dialog box, and you need to understand what this dialog box is asking you. So what is this saying? In the first section of this box, you can see select a table or range. Now, this pivot table has seen that I have changed my data into a table, and it has picked the table as table 1. Now, if this pivot table is in a range format, I would have to come back to this place, this what's it called, this my data here. I will have to highlight from A1 to the last cell where I have my data, that's V232. But because I've changed this to a table, I don't need to do that. Pivot table has seen that, okay, I want to use table 1. All right, I've picked table 1. Where do I want to put my pivot table? It can either be in a new worksheet, meaning once I put it in a new worksheet, it opens another worksheet here, and that's where I can work with my pivot table from. Or I put it in an existing worksheet where I am currently working. So I want to put it in this existing worksheet so that I can be able to explain the data as we set up the pivot table. So I'll put it here in the existing worksheet and I press OK. Once I've pressed OK, the next thing for me to do is, you can see this area. Pivot table has opened a I don't know what they call this, but pivot table has opened this area for us. And once we click this particular, once I click away, there's a section of the Excel that leaves immediately. But once I click into it, that particular aspect comes in. It activates the pivot table section. So what does this mean? This is where you can pick your data. It has all the column in your data, all the headers in your data. You can see it here. Everything is here. Now you can change the layout of this into different layout. If you want this kind of layout, you can change everything. This is where you can change the layout that you have here. You can change it to different styles you want. But I prefer this particular layout because it helps me see everything at a glance. Or I just come to this one and I pick this particular one too, because you can see more rows. You don't need to be scrolling down and scrolling up. So that's what you first need to know about your pivot table. So I want to explain each boxes here. What do they do? So you can see my data here. When I click out of this place, the section of Excel vanishes and I can come and explain my data here. You can see part of my data here. You can see this column, it has a date. This one has numbers. This has a number, also number. This one number. and this one are text format column. They are in text format. This also, they are text, and these are numbers. Now, when you go back to the pivot table and you click this place, what this means is that anything you want to show on your pivot table that is a value, either, let's say, most of us are data analysts or accountants or financial analysts, and if you want to show anything related to value, you have to put it here for it to make sense. Anything that is on the column section, this is the column of Excel, A, B, C, D, E. So anything that you want to show in this side is what you put in the row, in the column section, and anything you want to show in this side, the left hand side of your pivot table, is what you should put in the row section. Now, the filter section works differently, whereby you can put anything there, but it makes sense to put something that has like, okay, let me cite an example. Let's say you have two companies with the same kind of data. Now, you cannot put those two companies, everything in a particular row or in a particular column for it to make sense so much. But because you want to filter and look at, okay, if I choose, or maybe there's a region, you can use it for region, you can use it for companies. So if I choose company A, what can I see under their sales? If I choose company B, what can I see under their sales? So we'll start by choosing our data and filling it up. So for instance, I want to pick the gross sales. I put it here. You can see it has picked everything as gross sales. I'm setting it up one after the other. The next thing I want to do is I want to pick the month into the filter column. So I want to see the sales for month 1. Month 1 is here, which connotes January. The sales for month 1, I want to see it. Then, sorry, let me just change the number formatting to this. Yeah, that's my separator, and we are good. All right, so I want to see the sales for month 1. Here is it. For month 2, when I click it, it changes to the total sales for month 2. For month 3, it changes to the total sales for month 3. Now, that explains the filter aspect of the pivot table and the value section. So I want to put another thing in the row section. So I want to see the breakdown of sales per customer. Then I put it here. It breaks everything down per customer. And I can still see what I sold to each customer in month 3 here. Now, I want to do another thing to fill in the column section. So what do I want to do? I want to see, just a minute. Okay, so I will bring this month here to fill this column. So each month side by side, I want to see what happens. Then in the filter section, I will put in the product description here. So to each customer, explaining each section of this dialogue of pivot table. This place I've put the product description. You can see the different name of the product here. Then in the row section, I put in the customer names to list out the sales for each customer. Then in the column section, I put the month, which is month 1, month 2, month 3, that connotes January to March. And in the value section, I put the sales. Now, what I can do here is I can filter whatever I have here. So if I want to see what I sold for instance, I want to see what I sold for this particular product. I can pick any product here. I can see what I sold for this product in month 1, month 2, month 3, and I can also see what I have, what I sold to each customer for this particular product and the total sales. So this aspect is just to explain this dialogue and how to set up a pivot table. Moving forward, I would like to go to the next section, but before that, I want to know if you have any question. If you do, you can put it in the chat box while I check the chat box and answer a few questions before I move forward. I'll give us 10 seconds to see if I have any chats. All right, yes, the filter is acting as a slicer, correct. But slicer is also an additional function that is added in the pivot table. So we can use slicer more efficiently. Yes, thank you. Any other question before I move forward to the next part of the training? Okay, so I think we are on the same page.
So no question.
But of course, okay, there's a question.
But I said no question, no question.
Okay, no question. Thank you. I move forward to the next part. So we want to learn how to navigate the pivot table. How do we navigate it? So we have set up this simple pivot table. I've shown you how to set it up. So navigating the pivot table, if I click out of this pivot table, now I want to move this pivot table into to another worksheet. I want to copy it and open another worksheet so that I have a lot of opportunity to work with it well. Okay, so if I click out of this section of the pivot table, you can see that the dialog box that comes out at the extreme right is no longer there. But if I click into it, it comes up. Now, looking at the top of this section of Excel, which are the tools that you have here. Now, if I click out, you can see that there are two sections here that disappeared. But once I click back in, they appear again. Now, the first part of it, you can see the analyze function of pivot table, and you can see the design function. Now, let's start by using the design function of the pivot table. Now, the first thing I want to do is to set up a good design for this pivot table and to show you how to work with it. Now, you have a subtotal function here. So let me take out this month. Yes, and just leave this here. Let me take out the month and leave this here. So the first thing I like to do is to change the report format to a tabular form. And why I like doing this is that if I come here and add additional, let me put this here, material, yes, no, the description, that's the product description. Let me put it under the name, under the row here. You can see that when I clicked, so let me unfilter all. All right, thank you. So you can see that when I put this description under the row column, I have my various product description outlined in front of each customer. But if I change this layout to the normal layout, which is outline, let me change it to the normal layout, it won't be done properly. It won't list it out in front of the customer properly. It won't outline it looking like a good looking report. But if I change it to a tabular form, it gives me the column for names, that's the customer names. It gives me the description of what I sold to them and the value of what I sold to them. That's the first thing I like doing whenever I'm setting up a pivot table. Then the next thing is I can either switch the subtotal. is either I let the subtotal show at the top of the what's it called? I like the subtotal show at the top. Let me change this back to compact. Is that I let the subtotal show at the top here. That means this subtotal, everything that you have here is added at the top. You have the total sum here, then the breakdown below. Or I let the subtotal show at the bottom. So if I let the subtotal show at the bottom, I have each product outlined above, then I have the subtotal below, just like the normal convention of adding information or values. So I like the subtotal showing below my data in the pivot table, or I do not show subtotal at all. I just list them out and I off the subtotal. That's that for the subtotal, but I'll keep this as showing at the bottom. Then the next thing, grand total. Now, I can either have a grand total for each rows or each or the column. So what you have here below is the grand total. If I click, okay, go back. So if I click to the end of the data, I have my grand total here to the end of the data. Now, if I want to off this grand total, if I want to switch it off, I can do switch off for both row and column. I do not want to see grand total. I just want to see the subtotal for each customer. That's all. But I can also switch it on for just the column, which is this particular column, or I put in another value here. Let me see if I can do something here. I put in another value here and I switch on the grand total for rows only. Let me switch on, sorry, let me do that again. Let me switch on subtotal for rows and column, the grand total. Okay, hold on, let me see what is going on. I can switch it on for column, okay, then switch it on for rows only. Okay, I think I need to add additional, so let me freeze this pane and let me add additional information here. What can I do? I just want to illustrate switching on for the rows, because what the grand total will do is here, what I have here, there will be a grand total for the summation of what I have here and here. So what I will do is I will add the months. Where is my month? The months. I'll bring the months in the column section. Yes, I'll bring the months to the column section and take away this net value. So looking at what I have here, it's added up everything I have for each month. I can decide to switch off this grand total. I can switch it off here for just the column only. I don't have the grand total for each month beside it anymore. So that is how you navigate your pivot table in this section of your table layout. So the next thing is you can either remove your row header or you put it back, or your column header. You can, this aspect is just to format everything you have on your pivot table. So if I switch this on, you can see what it is doing. It is putting some formatting to my data here. So of course, whenever we want to present a data, we should not put too much of formatting. Too much of formatting is not good. A plain and good looking data is just enough to say whatever you want to talk about your information. Then I go to the section where I can just put in a regular or a good looking format as well. So what I also like to do is I like to insert a blank after each section of my data. So look at what this would do. So including a blank would put in a blank below each section of your data. So you have a separated blank, a blank separating information for customer enterprise and customer ASL, another blank separating customer ASL and blue eyes. So I like putting in a blank to properly separate what I'm trying to present to my listeners. Yes. So that is what I would like to show you under the design section of pivot table. Then we go ahead. The first part of the analyze section of the pivot table is you can rename your pivot table. You can say this is a sales pivot without a separator or a space. Sales pivot. You can change that to a sales pivot here. Then the next thing is you have some options how to set up your pivot table. This we often don't tamper with this, but you can look out to how it works on your pivot table. But majorly it is just for you to add additional formatting to your pivot table and how you want it to look. Either you want a filter, either you want, what have you. Just come here and, try this out and play with it and see how it works. So the next section is you can go to value field settings. Your value field setting is wants to show you how you want to lay out your pivot table. Display labels from next field in the same column. So when you tick this, it helps you display your label, this particular label that you are seeing in the next field. So if I untick this label should disappear. It should disappear. But let me leave this here. Then this particular section is we want to show the different mathematical sum and average or operation that you can do on your pivot table. You can change the settings here. These particular settings that you have here, you can change it. So that's what this does. Then you go to collapse and expand. So if I come to this place and I choose collapse, it collapses everything here. I don't see the breakdown. I just see what I have for month 1, month 2, and month 3. Then I can expand it back and it brings it. This grouping, this section of Excel, you can group and ungroup. We are still coming here, so I don't want to let the cat out yet. Then we come to the next section where you have the filter aspect of the pivot table. So this aspect you can use for filter is the slicer and the timeline. So we'll still talk about this. Then we go to the data. This is where you refresh your pivot table, and this aspect is where you add additional data to your pivot table. Then the next aspect of the pivot table is where you can clear your pivot table. You can select a particular aspect of your pivot table here. You can move your pivot table to another sheet. If I want to move this pivot table now, I can move it to a new sheet. If I click new sheet, it moves to another sheet here. It creates another sheet and move everything I have on my pivot table to another sheet. Yes, so you can see it has left this particular place and opened a new sheet and moved it there. Then what else? You can come to this place. This is value field settings, where you can have a calculated field and a calculated item. We are still going to talk about this. Then this is where you have a pivot chart. We are still going to talk about this. Then Excel also gives us a recommended pivot table. So let me quickly analyze, or let me quickly talk about this. So when I come to this place, I want Excel to give me a recommended pivot table. I come here and I choose recommended. Excel has already analyzed my data and it has shown me what I would like to have. So I just click one of it and look at what it gives me. It gives me the sum of each what's it called, each data, the sum of each division, the sum of each the sales by division rather. That is what Excel has recommended for me to show to my audience. Let me change this particular one. Okay, separator, let me use separator, sorry, number formats. Yes, so Excel has shown me what it wants me to present. This is just a recommendation from Excel, and I think Excel is almost right, because I can simply my boss can ask me, quickly give me the sum of my sales or the sales of the business per division. I quickly come here, Excel recommend for me a particular data I can use. It gives me the sum by division, and I copy this, I send to my boss immediately within the space of 5 minutes or 3 minutes. I'm done with what my boss asked me to do, and he gives me accolade and improves my turnaround time to respond to him. Yes, so that is the section of that you have here, recommended field. Then this also is just for you to have here is just for you to switch off this list field and switch it on. Then here is for you to have okay, this will not work because it does not have a subdivision, assuming these have a subdivision. So let me do this. For instance, let me come here and put something here quickly to explain this before we move forward. So the name, I come to this place, to the row section, and I put this here. So what you have underneath here as subdivision. So once I click this, it switch off the toggle button for me to either to off my subdivision or on it. So if I click this back, I have this toggle button. So if I click this, I have collapsed the subdivision for enterprise customer. But if I open this again, I have the breakdown once again per division. So that's what this button does. Then if I come here, if I tick this, it removes the header for this particular column. If I take it back, this column has a header again. So as I move forward to the next section, I've touched on navigating, designing. I have not touched on basic computation. Okay, let me quickly do that before I move forward. Basic computation in your pivot table. So I will just do a simple computation. So I come here, I leave this as division, sales per division. So what I can do here is that I can tell pivot table to just give me the average sales. So let me come to this place and tell my pivot table that, oh, what I want to do, value field settings. You can see it under value field settings. So how did I get to value field settings? I right click and I come to value field settings. A navigation pane comes up, or a toggle pane comes up, and it shows the different thing I can do on my pivot table. So I can do a count, I can do an average, I can do the maximum per division, I can do a minimum per division, I can do the product multiplication, I can do the count, standard dev, and what have you, different things. So I want Excel, I want the pivot table to just show me the number or the average sales per division. Now, this is the average sales per division. As you can see, hotel division has the highest average sales per division, meaning for each customer, they sell 268 naira per sales for each company. That's the average sales. So you can simply say that the hotel division customers have the highest or the valuable customer per division. So if they are asking you, which division has the valuable customer that we can push more adverts to, this has answered your question. The hotel division as that set of customer. Then you can go ahead to do a count. So again, value field settings, you come here, count. How many sales do we have per division? Then we come here, division fast food has 83 sales, hotel 47, 69 sales in the residential division, and office and apartment 33. So these are the basic computation you can do on your pivot table. So before I move to the next part, I would want to answer few questions if you have any for me. Thank you.
Okay,
You can put it in the chat box.
As a coffee has a question, right? Said if you have a function in your data, how does the pivot table function with it?
Can you come again, please?
So it says that if there's a function already existing in your data, you now use a pivot table on it. How does the pivot table function with it? That's his question.
Okay, so we can try to test that out with your what's it called? We can test that out. So the high and low of the answer is the pivot will still pick your data, how it is showing with the function. But by testing that out, let's do a basic computation here. So what I will do here is that I want to recalculate this field by doing a basic multiplication. So 7.5% multiplied by, that's the VAT rate for Nigeria. So for those of us that are not in Nigeria, multiplied by the net sales. I put in an okay, then I fill down. So this part of my data that I highlight here, let me highlight it and change. Yes, this part of my data is a function throughout. But when you come to my pivot table and I come to, and I bring, what's it called? Where is it? The tax column, the tax amount column. And I bring this here. Now, but I want to see the breakdown per customer. So I remove the division and I go to breakdown per customer here. Now, okay, let me remove the gross sales. Now, look at this. Excel is still showing us that it is identifying it as numbers, regardless if there's a function there or not. Excel will dish out what it sees, or the pivot will dish out what it sees under or on top of the cell. It is not looking at what it can see below the cell, because whatever you can see here, where's my sample? Whatever you can see in this place, that is not actually what is operating. There is a particular function below it, which is this particular little multiplication that we did here. But Excel has shown us the value on top of it. So what Excel has shown us here is what the pivot table will definitely bring out. So I don't know if I've answered your question before I move forward.
Okay, it's fine to me. You've answered it though. But okay, they're saying that you're too fast. Maybe you can slow down. But it's fine.
Oh, I apologize. I'm thinking we have the recording after this, and we can still do a thorough review of what I have said. So it's just because of our time, and there's a lot to cover on pivot table, and even it doesn't stop in my training. You know, you can still do further learning on pivot table.
Awesome.
I apologize for being too fast, and I think we should just endure for now and review the pre-recording. But if you have any question, please let's know after each section for us not to be lost. Thank you. So moving to the part 3. So what we will do here is we want to look at how we can do a grouping, solving the issue of arrangement on your pivot table. We want to see a drill down. I want to make sub reports. Then we'll work with pivot charts and we do a calculated field. So we'll be explaining this one after the other, still using my sample data. All right, the first thing for us to do is we want to group. And what do we want to group? Say, for instance, we already said, oh, we want to group this customer into two different parts, and we want to do a sampling. So we want to pick two different samples. So, and I want to group this customer. I don't want to do any manual grouping or any manual work. So what I will just do is I will highlight to the parts where I want to group. So we have 40 rows here, 40 customers. So I will pick till the 20th customer. I highlight to the 20th customer. You can do this in two processes. You can either come here and group one, you have grouped, or I do a Ctrl+Z and I come here under the analyze part of Excel and I come and group this selection. Two ways. That's the two ways I can do it. Then another thing, so I want to group the next part of my, what's it called, of my customer. I group them. I come here and I group. So you can see I have two groups. So sample one, I change the name here, sample one, and I come here, I do sample two. So sample one and sample two. Oh, sorry, this is showing group two. I change this to sample two. Sample two. Great. Sample one and sample two. So you can see that Excel has taken sample two to the top and brought down sample one, but I don't want it to be arranged this way. Now, a lot of people will just come here. Let's say, let me show you the long process of what they will do. What they will just do is they will come here. How do we do this? Okay, they will come here, they will come to the design tab, they will first change this to a tabular format. When they change this to tabular format, they will highlight to the end of the row and come here. They will come to home, they will sort, long process, they will sort it, A to Z, or yeah, they will sort A to Z. Sample one will go up, sample one will come down. This is a very long process, and it can waste your time if you have a lot of sheets to work with. It can waste your time. And the best thing to do is on each sheet, whatever you want to arrange, you can drag pivot table. You can drag it. So I would okay, I'll just do a Ctrl+Z to put back the sample two to the top. I will change back my design to a compact design. Okay, I want to change it to compact. I'll change my report layout to compact. So once I change it back to compact, what I'll just do is I'll come here and I'll drag this. I'll drag this to the bottom. Sample one goes up, sample two comes down. Simple as that. No thinking required. So that is how you can solve the issue of what's it called? The issue of Excel, the pivot table, rearranging your data. That's how you can solve it. Say for instance, you don't want you want the highest customer, this one, to go to the top. You can also do this with this that particular this thing I've used. So I can do this here. I can come here and bring the highest customer to the top. I want to see the highest customer. I'm interested in seeing the highest customer. Or you can just come here, you highlight, and you come to this section of Excel. Where is it? Okay, you come here, then you sort from largest to smallest. You sort from largest to smallest. The only disadvantage that has is that you want to only try to work on a part of your what's it called, pivot table, which is the sample 1 data here. But doing from largest to smallest, both your sample 1 and sample 2 has been rearranged. If you can see that the largest is at the top, followed by this, followed by this. But I only want to work with sample 1. I just do the manual process. I come here and I drag and I take this up. Sorry, I come here, I drag and I take this up. Simple as that. So that is how you do a rearrangement on your pivot table and grouping on your pivot table. So the next thing we will be looking at is drill down. So what does it mean to drill down? Okay, so I want to switch on my subtotal. So show subtotal at the bottom of the group. I want to show subtotal at the bottom of the group. So, and I want to collapse this sample 1 and sample 2. Looking at this, there are things that form the total of this sample 1 and the total of sample 2. Now, I want to see them and make sure that I can analyze properly. If someone just sent you this simple pivot table and you can see it, oh, how can I see everything that this person has aggregated to show this total? All you can do is just come to the particular cell that you have that total and double click. Once you double click, it gives you the breakdown of everything you have on as everything you have as the total of this. So we have picked the sum of tax amount and we have 1,129,000. So if we go to the tax amount, the tax aspect of this part, then we come here and we do a sum. We have 1,129,000, the same thing as we have here. That is how you can do a drill down. Now, going forward, we want to now say, okay, I'll remove my naming 2, which is the sample, naming 2, and I put my naming 2, where is my naming 2 here? It has created it. I put my naming 2 and I bring it to the filter column. Now, I have the 2 samples here. I want to see the breakdown for sample 1 and the breakdown for sample 2. Now, my boss has asked me that, okay, as you have the breakdown for sample 1 and sample 2, give me the aggregate and print them out of each sample. Now, I want to do, that's a report alone, giving me the aggregate and print them out. So what people will often do is, they will, assuming you have a lot of samples, maybe you have 20 samples, they will come here, they will filter, they will do sample 1, they will copy, maybe change the name of this to probably, yeah, let's leave it as sample 1 and change this to customer sample. Let me change this to customer sample. I change this to customer sample, put a nice header, come here, just write something here and do a highlight and print. That's what some people will do, you know, doing it for each what's it called, each samples. But what you can simply do is you can come to this section of the pivot table and come to this option and just click show report filter pages. Report filter pages will separate each samples, still giving you a pivot table, but it will separate it by the filter that you want to create. So you just have your report filter table. It will give you the options of all the filter you have. Then you will click OK. So once you click OK, it gives you, it comes here, it gives you reports for sample 1. Where's my second report? Sorry. I'll have to do that again. Let me delete the ones I don't need. Let me delete the ones I don't need. I come here, I delete this. Okay, you can recreate this. Okay, so I work with just few. All right, so let's do that again. So I filter all, and I do this here. So when I go to my analyze and I come to show report filter and customer samples, I press OK. Now here it gives me the report for sample 1, and here it gives me the report for sample 2, just with the click of a button. I can just come here and print sample 1, and I print my sample 1 here. I print sample 1 and I print sample 2 just with the click of a button. So that is how you can create a sub report from your pivot table. So the next aspect we are going to is our pivot chart. Sorry, we will ask our question after each part. So that's how I've designed this training. So the next aspect is the pivot chart. So the pivot chart, now we have different things. I know most of us have worked with charts, and we can just do a bit of little practice. So what I would like to do is I would like to create a line chart. So I will bring the months to the column section. That now it is giving me the month-on-month sales that I have done. So I would change this to sales, to net sales. I'll bring this here. Now I don't want the grand total for each row. What I'll just come and to do here is I will just on it for column alone, and I'll off for the row. Then format my numbers to look presentable and neat, remove the decimals, and I'm fine. So I want to create a simple line chart. What I will do is I'll come to this part of the pivot table, and I'll come to pivot charts. So Excel has different version of chart. I'm using Excel version 2013 on this particular system. Of course, we can see how it is arranged in different versions of Excel. For instance, Excel 2016, 2019, there are more charts that you can pick from. But the basic thing is we want to create a line chart. And how do we do that? We want to create a line chart for just the grand total. Now, I create the line chart here. So look at what Excel is giving me. It gives me this. Let me just click. This does not make sense. Of course, it doesn't make sense. Now, but I can choose to, I can choose to change whatever I have here. I can choose to format it how I want it to look. Now, what I will just come to do is I'll come to change data type. No, not change chart. I come to, okay, I come to select data. Yes, we want to format this particular chart. I come to select data, and I first switch row to column. That's the first thing I want to do. It still does not make sense. I've switched the row to column, but it still does not make sense. So what I will do now is that I want to, okay, so I've switched the row to column, but it still does not make sense. So what I will do is I'll click OK. Then I will change what I have here in the, let me come to months. What I have here, I'll bring it to the name section, and I'll remove the name aspects. Yes, so I want to show the line chart for this particular sales for each month. So I'll come back to the select data and also change this. I'll switch this row to column. Once I switch the row to column, I click OK. You can see that the best performing month is month 2, which is February, as you can see a peak. But the worst performing month is month 1, because it's a trough. Now, to now format this better, I don't have much breakdown for me to analyze what I would like to do, but we can still do that in another example. But this is how to set up a pivot chart. So what I can just do is I can delete this line. I don't want the line. I can remove, I can set my pivot chart setting. I press Ctrl 1. It brings out the boundaries. What I want to have the difference between each part should be 1 million. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The difference between each boundary should be 1 million. I press OK so that it gives me a neater chart here, 1 million. So, and what I can just do is come here, charts of sales, MOM, month on month, chart of sales month on month. So month on month, you can see what my sales looks like, chart of sales month on month. So we can also change these charts. Let's go to change chart type. So once you right click, you come to change chart type. You can change this chart to a bar chart or a column chart. A column chart will also work well. Looking at this, month on month, same thing. We are still depicting what we have analyzed on a line chart. A column chart will show you that, oh, the highest selling month is month 2, which is February, and the lowest selling month is month 1, which is January. So you can practice more on chart type. So majorly what people often use in practice is column, line, pie, bar, area. So all these other ones, then combo charts. You can also we also use combo charts in practice. So all these other ones are mostly used by advanced, users. Probably you want to do a regression, you use a X and Y, a stock chart, and what have you. So those are for advanced level of learning, which you can go further to learn about. So that is how you create a chart on the pivot table. So going to the next aspect, which is a calculated field. Now, I would like to delete the, what's it called? To delete the worksheet I don't need anymore so that I would be left with. So what I can do is I can press down my control and click. No, don't let me delete my sample data. So it's just left with this one, okay. So what I can do to just delete at once is I press down my control and I keep clicking the worksheet I want to delete. Then I press delete for it to be deleted, but I don't want to delete those ones. So I just come here. I, remove the selection. I just click on the ones I've not selected. It will remove the total selection, and I go to the particular one I want to delete and I delete. All right, so a calculated field. What is a calculated field? Now, a calculated field works in this way. I come here, I remove all these ones here. I remove this. Yes, I remove this, the months, and I remove this. Let me just put in the division. So let me look for the division and I put it here, the division. Now, what does a calculated field does? A calculated field helps you to create a column that was not pre-existing in your data. Say for instance, you want to have another column that is showing the percentage of sales per each customer under each division. Okay, to make the example clearer, I will also remove the name. Say you want to show a percentage per each division on the total sale. Or let's say you do not have a tax column before. Now you want to create a new tax column in your data. That is what a calculated field will help you do. So in this sample data, I will delete the tax column here. So once I delete the tax column, I will also delete the tax rate. So what I can do is I'll come to this aspect. I have the gross sales. I want to calculate the tax column and I want to calculate the tax rate by myself. I don't have it in my Excel yet. So for me to remove this tax rate and the tax amount, I will have to refresh my data. You can see they have disappeared. So once they have disappeared, what I want to do is I want to recalculate those columns. So the first thing for me to do is I would remove this and I'll come to analyze. Under the analyze, I'll go to the field items and sets and I'll say calculated field. What do I want to calculate? I want to calculate the tax rate or the tax amount, sorry. I want to calculate the tax amount. Yes, the tax amount. That's what I want to calculate. So I would come here. How do I want to calculate it? Which field will give me the tax amount? Now, the field that will give me the tax amount is my net sales value. I will insert it. That field, how do you want it to work? What do you want to multiply it, add to it, subtract to it, or which field do you want to add to it, divide by it, that will give you this tax amount? Because I don't have the tax amount already in that particular data, you know how I can get my tax amount is tax rate multiplied by the sales value. Because I don't have the tax rate already existing in my data, I'll just say multiplied by, I'll multiply this field by 7.5%. Then I add it. Once I add it, when you come to the extreme bottom, you can see that it has created additional fields. So once I press OK, it brings out my tax amount. Now, for me to see that, oh, I am accurate in my computation, I want to create a tax rate for me to see that, oh, my operation, my mathematical operation is working fine. I'll come to this place. I'll come and create another calculated field. I come to this aspect. What do I want to show again? I want to show the tax rates, the tax percentage. That's what I want to show. Then I come to this place. This tax percentage, how does it want to work? And what do I want to multiply by what? I come to how to get the percentage will be the tax amount divided by the net sales value. The tax amount, I insert it. What do I want to divide as the denominator? I will go to the net sales value. I come to this place. I will insert. Sorry, I'll have to do that again. I didn't do that properly. So I will put the division sign. Once I put the division sign, I'll then select the local net sales value and I'll insert. So once that is in, then I will add it. That has been added into my field. When I come to the bottom, I have a new field. Now this new field, once I have this new field, I just press OK. It gives me 0.8, but this is not correct. Why did I say so? All I just have to do is I come to this place, change this to a percentage, and I expand my decimals. You can see that I'm correct. It gives me a 7.5% of VAT. All this field, this column, I do not have it in my data before. I just created it. Now, if I do a drill down here, in my let me change this to a good looking set of data. I do a drill down. Under this drill down, if I compare this particular data here, where is it? It should give me my calculated field somewhere. I drill down. Okay, why is it not bringing it? Let me delete this. Okay, under this drill down, let me see. Let me refresh. Okay, I would see to it before we close this section, once I remember what I'm doing wrong. So that is how to create a calculated field in pivot table when you don't have that data pre-existing in your downloaded data. So before I move to the next section, which is the last part of this training, I would like to entertain one or two questions.
Okay, awesome. So Kofi has a question. Said how will you consolidate data for multiple Excel sheets into a single pivot table?
Okay, great. That's an advanced usage of pivot table that you can use with Power Pivots and inclusive of Power Query.
Power query.
So you will have to download that add-in. I don't have that add-in in this Excel. So what I have tried to do is to restrict this training to the allocated time. So if I'm opportune to come next time, we can go to an advanced section where we can do a power pivot, power query, simple analysis that we can add different worksheets using relationship to create a good looking pivot table. Yes.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
further
I think that's
question?
all. No questions so far.
All right. To the last part of the pivot table training, this should take us just a maximum of 15 minutes. I'm out of time. Am I permitted to move on?
Awesome.
Thank you so
But
much.
no, yeah, awesome.
All right. You want to say something?
We're having another section in an hour's time. That's also
Okay, in an hour time. Sorry. Thank you for permitting me. So the last part is using the analysis tool in pivot table. So this answers the question of someone that said slicer. So the analysis tool that we have, why I call it analysis tool is that when we are using the get pivot function, you will see how powerful the slicer and the timeline is. So what does the slicer does? The slicer is just a filter. They are both filters. So the slicer will filter by a particular criteria. So for instance, I want to create a slicer. Once I click the slicer, I come to the analyze section of the pivot table. I click the slicer. The slicer is telling me what would I like to filter by in my pivot table. Oh, okay. I want to filter by month. I want to have a slicer that shows month 1, month 2, month 3. And I also want to show a slicer that's, okay, what else can I show? Hold on, what else can I show? Okay, and I also want to show a slicer by the week. So, and also a slicer by the customer. So what I will do is once I tick all these criteria or all these boxes and I press OK, it creates 3 different slicers. So this is the slicer for month, slicer for the customer, and slicer for the week. So if I tick a particular aspect of this slicer, month 1, what did I sell for each division? I tick it. It shows me what I have for each division, the breakdown for each division and the total. In month 2, what did I sell? It shows me the breakdown and the total for month 2 and same as month 3. Okay, in month 1, what did I sell for, let's say, Duvet Land? Duvet Land, it shows that, Duvet Land is in the fast food division and it's only purchased 206,000 naira worth of goods from us, and it happened in week 12. So that's what a slicer can do for us. And how do we format a slicer? Let me just remove the third one and work with just 2. In this slicer, once you click on the slicer, you can see that another pane, another section of the Excel, this part of Excel that you're seeing, it shows up, and it brings different design that you can work with. I wouldn't want to dwell too much on this, but it brings different design. So for you to make sure your slicer looks good, you can come to slicer setting. You can change the name of the slicer, maybe customer name. I can change this to customer name underscore name, and the slicer header, I can change this to customer, and I want my slicer to be from ascending to descending, or to use the custom list, and I do it. It changed the name of the slicer. Now I want to show my slicer side by side. I want it to show in a very good way, whereby I can, so 2 by 2 slicer, so 2 by each slide. So I want to reduce the amount of scroll down that I have to do. So this is what my slicer will look like once I change the columns that I want to see in my slicer. As well, you can say that, oh, my slicer, what do I want to do? I want to ensure that any information here that does not have a data. So why you see this grayed out is because there's no information that will fit to it. So any one that does not have information, I don't want it to show on the slicer. So I come to the slicer setting, I come to hide items with no data, then I tick it and it goes away. I cannot see any items with no data again. So that is how to work with a slicer. I'll delete this and I'll go straight to the insert timeline. Insert timeline works perfectly with dates. So let's say, for instance, you want to know, okay, let me go to the billing. You can see that it has perfectly identified the column it can work with. It works with the billing dates. So this is the timeline. Now, what does it do? I can say, oh, I want to see the billing from January to half year, June. Once I drag my timeline, it can give me what I sold from January to June. If I expand it, it should work. But now it is not working. Why is it not working? It's because I have not connected this, what's it called? This particular, this particular timeline to my report. So what I have to do is I'll come here and I tick my pivot table and I put it here. So once I have connected it, so this should work now perfectly, I believe. So let me refresh this and do this once more. Okay, once happening. Okay, let me delete this and create this timeline again. So I insert my timeline, I go to the analysis part, I come to the billing date. I come here and it works perfectly fine for me. So it has changed it to quarter, but I want it to pick just month. That's what I want it to pick, the month. So you can, okay, I know what is wrong. We have only 3 months here, month 1 to what's it called, month 3, that's March. So what I can work with is I can work with January to March. So in January, this is what I sold, but I want to show what I sold in January and February. Once I drag it, it sums up what I sold in January and February. If I drag it, it sums up what I sold in January, February, March. So to make this look good again and make sense, I bring out my month. Where's my month? I bring this out to the column section. Once I bring out my month to the column section, once I drag this, it will only show me versus month 1 and month 2. If I drag this to February and versus March, it will show me versus February and versus March, what I have side by side with each other. This is a good way to have your reports outlined using billing, using timeline and what's it called? That's your slicer. So I'm rushing and I want to quickly cover the last part of this training, which is the what's it called? The get pivots formula. Not a lot of people are open to this formula, but it works very good for a particular report. So I want to change this to a table, and I change this to table. I make sure this is in good shape. You can see here we have 88,000 rows of data. So what I want to do is I want to create a report, like a simple P&L that will show what I have here. Now, how do I achieve this? I want my P&L to look like this. So we have learned how to create a slicer. You can create this yourself. I won't create it in the report, but I will ensure I work with this, and you can also use this formula to create this. In this worksheet, I will just use the slicer to explain the get pivot data to explain what I want to achieve. All right, so I have in this place, I'll create a new pivot table. I'll delete this, and I'll create a new pivot table by saying Alt NV. Alt NV create a new pivot table for me in a new sheet. Now I have a new pivot table. So what do I want to do? I want to put the column here. I want to put in the sales, the discount, the net value, everything that I have as value, I put it there. The distribution costs and the warehousing, I put it there, everything. The next thing for me to do is by let me see, by each brand, I bring it to the rows. By each brand, I bring it to the rows. Then what have you? I come to the period. I put the period in the, okay, I don't think I need the period. So I've picked what I needed, what I need for this particular report to work. So what do I want to achieve? I also want to put the customer here and the, yes. So what do I want to achieve? I want to ensure that I do a simple report. And what should the report give me? The report should give me the total of the total of sales by year 2015 and 2016 by using a get pivot formula. Now I have set up my worksheets that I want to use. All I have to do is to link this gross sales. I link it to my pivot table here. I link it to the total of the gross sales. So where do I have my gross sales? I have my gross sales here on column B. So I just come to this place, I put my gross sales here, and I press OK. Now I have this. I want to show my values in millions because it's too large to make sense of. So I just put 1,000 sign behind it to reduce the zeros. Now I have 55,000. Now you can see that there's a formula here called get pivot. So how does get pivot work? Get pivot will work by going to each rows, the name of the field, and the section of the field you want to pick. So to give this instance, to ensure this get pivot is working fine, what I have to do is I come to this place, I change this sum of. This sum of, you can see that it gives me sum of gross sales before, but I already have my outlines here, the gross sales, the discount, the distribution cost, and what have you. I already have them outlined here. So I want to connect this sum of to my gross sales. I put an ampersand, a hand sign, and I connect it to this gross sales, that whenever I copy this formula to discount, it brings in the total for it immediately without going back and forth. So that is what I want to do. I have linked this. I come to the next part of the formula. The formula says, in the pivot table, what are you looking for? I'm looking for it in pivot table A3. My pivot table starts from A3 and it is locked. This is fine. What do I want to check? I want to check it in the years column for 2015. Because I have 2015 already here, I will remove this as well and I will link it to this cell. Once I link it to this cell and I press enter, I should have the same value. I should have the same value. Now, I have to lock my cells so that they don't move. The cells I don't want to move, I lock this. But this particular cell, this one, I want it to move to the right. I want it to move downward, but I don't want it to move to the right. So I lock the columns only without the rows. I put a $sign behind the column and I press OK. If I copy this formula down, I copy this down, I choose the cell I want to put them, I put them down, Alt ESF for copying the formula. It gives me everything by just copying and pasting my formula effortlessly. Now I can compute my net sales. I can compute my gross profit. I can compute my total direct costs by summing this, the sum of these two below, the total direct costs. Then I get my contribution margin by the total direct cost. Now, the contribution margin in 2015 is 106,000. 106,000. So for me to achieve this in 2016, all I have to do is to come here and paste in this place. It still gives me the same value. And the reason for that is that I have not ensured that my cell moves very well. So all I have to do is I come here and I drag this to this. So this is the formula you are dragging, this particular one. You are dragging it. It changes it. And I copy this. I come and paste it in the cells I want to put my formulas. I do a Control ESF and I press OK. It gives me the value for 2016. So I can also copy this formula. I copy this particular one, copy, and I come here and I paste them. Control ESF. Okay. Okay, don't worry. Let me just copy everything. They are all formulas. I copy, then come here, Control ESF. So it changes. All I have to come to do is to drag my cells to 2015. Then I copy this and paste it here. Control ESF. Yes, and it changes. So I want you to fill this up by yourself and give me the gross profit, the KPI. This is just an header. Give me the gross profit percentage and give me the selling contribution. That's the contribution. This should be the selling contribution percentage. That's what I want you to give me here. And after that, that's a take home for practice. After that, I want you to create a what's it called? A slicer from this particular pivot table. Let me just give you an example. I'll create a slicer, just one. So I'll create a slicer. So the slicer here, I want to create the slicer. I come to this place. Let me see if I can create a slicer for the client. I create a slicer for the client or a slicer for the client type and I press OK. Now I'll copy this slicer and paste it in this place. Once I paste it here, this slicer is working perfectly. So if I want to see the P&L for each of my customer type, maybe for supermarket, I just click here. It gives me the total P&L for the supermarket division. In this gross profit, it gives me total P&L for the grocery division. And in these discounters, it gives me the total P&L for each division. So go ahead to create a slicer, design it, make it look good, and fill in this total box here. What you should have should look like this, and it should make sense. Sorry, this has the formulas have changed, so you can go, because I've deleted the pivot table that is connected to it. But I want you to create all this slicer and fill in this and make it look good again. By that, I've come to the end of my training, and I hope I've impacted knowledge, and thank you very much.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Okay, so Daniel, our last two questions, right? So there's no questions so far, but our last two questions is, the first one is how you started your old data journey, and also the last one will be what advice you have for people just starting out in the data field.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I started working with data by just testing things. I just picked some data, I test it, I watch one or two YouTube videos, and okay, I test it. I was not working with it, but it kept on going away. It kept on, I kept on losing the knowledge. So I joined some boot camp. I joined some challenges, and of course, my current work afford me the opportunity to now work with Excel, Power Query, and some BI intelligence tools. Of course, I've not moved further than Power BI. That's just what I use, those two BI tools. So that's how I started my journey about 5 years ago, and it's been interesting. You can't learn everything in a day, and even though you look smart or you look good on that tool, you need to share knowledge, and you need to be able to know that, oh, someone can teach you regardless of the level of knowledge you have about that tool that you are using. So there's no end of knowledge for these BI tools. It's so vast that you can't learn everything in 1 day, 1 year, 5 years. That's my advice.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Like, it's really a lot too, because when you said you're going to do pivot table from advanced and beginners to advanced, I was like, okay, let's watch. And you actually covered everything, even though you went beyond time, but you still covered almost everything. And Kofi's question needed power pivot, which I know you. I mean, definitely we'll have to invite you for future sections and everything. Okay, so let me
I will be
just.
honored. I'll be
Oh,
glad.
awesome. So for some of you that might be interested in watching this section, so I'm dropping the link to our YouTube channel. It's actually recorded, so by this time tomorrow, it should be available on our YouTube channel. And also, we're having another section also by 6, so that's less than, let's say, 32 minutes from now. It's on Power BI. I've also dropped the link in the chat box. So it's called Data Modeling in Power BI. So we're having another MC to take us on that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel, so much. Like, so impactful, so impactful. So I'll stop the recording right about now.